Hong Kong is a mostly urban area made up of 430 square miles with a population of almost 7.5 million people. The area is classified as a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China. This means that they are within the jurisdiction territory of the People's Republic of China, but are a separate entity that acts on its own when it comes to political and economical matters. The region is located at the southeast edge of the Asian continent and sticks out into the South China Sea with water on all three sides. This geographic location is part of how the country has been able to keep itself labeled as a special administrative region and not be completely ruled by the central government of the Chinese Communist Party. This separation of governments, however, has been a source of tension between Hong Kong and the Chinese Communist Party for many years now. In 2014, these tensions hit a high point that resulted in the umbrella movement coming to life in Hong Kong. However, to discuss this matter correctly, it is essential to jump back in time first. The British Empire had ruled Hong Kong and other territories in the Chinese jurisdiction since 1842 as part of a treaty during the First Opium War. In 1997, after over 150 years of British rule, Hong Kong was given back to the Chinese government, much to the disagreement of the people of Hong Kong.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I should like, on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen and of the entire British people, to express our thanks, admiration, affection, and good wishes to all the people of Hong Kong who have been such staunch and special friends over so many generations.
China agreed to rule over them and others with a policy of one country, two systems. This agreement was upheld to a certain extent that kept both sides satisfied up until 2014. Xi Jinping was elected president of the Chinese Communist Party in 2013, and in the following year, the party made the announcement that they would be screening the candidates for the 2017 Hong Kong election of a new chief executive. The people of Hong Kong saw this as a total overreach of power and felt that this infringed upon their rights to conduct elections how they pleased, as outlined in the original One Country, Two Systems agreement. In response to this action by the government, protesters took to the streets of Hong Kong in November 2014, about a month after the announcement was made regarding the 2017 candidate screening. They focused on the Civic Plaza, which was the home of the central government building in the area. Leading the way of the protests were several university and college activist groups that have been advocating for more democratic rights in Hong Kong for years. After a few days of peaceful occupation of the area, violence erupted when government police were deployed and began beating protesters and throwing tear gas into the crowds to get them to leave. Two of the most notable figures to arise from the Civic Plaza occupation were student activists Nathan Law and Joshua Wong. Nathan Law spoke at my alma mater, Washington and Jefferson College, multiple times during my years there. He discussed the importance of upholding democratic rights in all areas of the world and what his experience was like being wrongfully arrested on false allegations, being forced to leave the country, and having his loved ones still living in the region be harassed by the central government because of his actions.
Yes, indeed, the risk is that it's not risk-free, it's not cost-free, especially you're fighting against the whole authoritarian government, which is possibly the strongest on earth now. I had to leave my home city. I have to leave behind my families. I severed my ties with them after I left. I have to stop contacting my fellow activists after I left because it could possibly endanger them by just building communication channels.
Law was exiled from China and was given asylum in London. He works as an author and public speaker, spreading information about the abuse that is taking place in Hong Kong. Joshua Wong, unfortunately, is still being held in prison for his actions against the central government. His family was forced to move to Australia due to worry that the government would go after them as well. Democracy advocacy groups from across the world have been working to try and free him, but there is little to no hope that the Chinese government will let that happen. Although the Civic Plaza protests ended terribly for the activists who were there, the use of tear gas at the Civic Plaza dispersion would be the event that created the namesake to this movement. In the weeks following the Occupy Civic Plaza movement, another movement was inspired named the Occupy Central campaign. The target of these peaceful protests were to occupy the business district of the region to shut down trade that would benefit the central government. Multiple areas were targeted and people of all ages came out to support the movement. The umbrella movement was named during this time as the protesters of the business district began bringing umbrellas with them to help avoid being hit with tear gas during dispersion attempts by the police. When looking above the areas, all one could see were the tops of the umbrellas, thus prompting many reporters and journalists to give the protests the name of the Umbrella Movement. By the end of December 2014, the occupations had all been dispersed by police and the Umbrella Movement had seemingly been stopped by the central government. Unlawful arrests, bombardments of tear gas, and even a handful of deaths occurred during the Umbrella Movement protests that lasted a total of 79 days. The protests were unfortunately unsuccessful because they did not create any change in how the Chinese central government went about governing Hong Kong and choosing candidates for the 2017 election. The movement did, however, open the eyes of the world to the brutality of the Chinese central government and what they are willing to do to maintain power in that region. It also showed the strength and resiliency of the people of Hong Kong and their will to fight for their democratic rights. Younger generations in China have been inspired by the Umbrella Movement, and there is increasing political activism being done by high school and college-age students to increase democracy in China. Since 2014, there have been multiple protests pertaining to government infringement upon election rights and the rights of citizens in general. Although it is an uphill battle against a dominating government body, there is growing hope that the future generations of China will be able to break the system and create a more free and democratic nation.